You're about to discover world-class copywriting tips from an absolute genius. Now here's what you gotta know though. The guy you're about to discover these tips from was not known as a copywriter, but he was known as one of the most persuasive people on the planet. So who am I talking about? It's none other than genius Steve Jobs. So here's just a bit of what you're gonna discover on this video right now. So first thing, you're gonna discover a proven formula to subconsciously trigger your prospects to do what you want. Here's what's cool. They won't realize it's happening, and then they will ultimately love you for it. So it's a good thing to do. Another thing you're gonna discover is how to never have your prospect question your big promise again. You're gonna see a powerfully simple way to get your prospects to believe almost everything you say in your entire sales letter or ad or piece of copy. You're gonna discover how to change your prospect's mind without them noticing. If you do this, you'll overcome almost any objection. And then finally, you're gonna discover how a genius copywriter persuades people. And if you use this, your readers will almost buy every time. Now that's just a small fraction of what you're gonna get out of this quick video. So make sure you pay attention, grab some notes, and let's get started. So the first thing that I want you to do is listen to this short little clip of what Steve Jobs says here and see if you catch this hidden, very persuasive copywriting technique.
As you know, Apple makes the best notebooks on the planet. The MacBook and the MacBook Pro. These are the standards in the industry by which competitive products are judged.
So did you catch that? Here's what he said. As you know, Apple makes the best notebooks on the planet. These are the standard in the industry which competitive products are judged. That very first part of the very first sentence, as you know. This is what we would call a presupposition, and it's also an embedded command. What we're saying when somebody says like, as you know, you as the person reading or hearing go, oh, I already know that. So you start to believe and assume that it's already true. It's a assumption. It's an implied assumption, and it's what we call an embedded command. There's lots of them. There's lots of ways to do these small little NLP, it's neuro-linguistic programming, triggers, and it just assumes it's a presupposition of that you already know this is true or believe this is true. And there's a lot of little ways to do this. Let me give you a few other examples of embedded commands. And now this is the first part of the phrase. There's actually a formula to write these, and I'm going to show you what it is in just a second. So here's a few of them you can start out. When you, so that's a start of one. What it's like when you, if you're to, it's not necessary to, how surprised would you be to, you might find. So those are just a few examples. Now, here's the formula, all right? Those were just the beginning. It's what we call like a weasel phrase. It's a way to imply something to our readers, our listeners, without being super direct. So here's how it works. You take the phrase, like the ones I just showed you, you take a verb, and you take an experience. Those are the three things. So it's a phrase plus a verb plus their experience. Ultimately, the experience that you want them to have and you want them to believe will happen. So let me show you. I'll give you an example. Here's one. How surprised would you be to, so that was the phrase that I showed you, how surprised would you be to find out you can finish a sales letter in 3 hours using the QRC sales letter system? So that's an implied style embedded command, right? What I'm saying there without going, the QRC system allows you to finish sales letters in 3 hours, all right? What I'm doing is I'm putting it into a different context, a different frame. What I'm saying in the sentence is, yes, the QRC system will allow you to finish sales letters in 3 hours, but I'm changing how it's happening in the sentence structure and saying, how surprised would you be to find out you can finish a sales letter in 3 hours using the QRC sales letter system. So now they're on this path of self-discovery, and when they read that, they go, oh, it's true, and I'm experiencing it. That's how this NLP style thing works. And Steve Jobs was a master at it. I mean, you saw how he opened his speech, as you know. Let me give you another one. How would it feel? All right, so now immediately your prospect, your reader, is is imagining. They're already jumping into, I wonder what it would feel like. How would I feel? And they're starting to experience it already. And we're just commanding them to do that type of thing. So we're saying, how would it feel when you use, so now they're imagining them using this system. They may or may not know what the system is yet, but they're using it. How would it feel when you use the QRC sales letter system and put an end to writer's block and frustration? So that's how these phrases work. They're extremely powerful, and I had to show you how it worked with Steve Jobs. Now let's move on to the next one. So go ahead and watch this next little clip and watch what Steve Jobs does here.
What is the MacBook Air? In a sentence, it's the world's thinnest notebook.
So nothing crazy fantastic, right? He just makes a big, bold promise. The MacBook Air is the thinnest MacBook or the computer, whatever, in the world. The thinnest, right? And sure, we're like, okay, whatever. It's a big, bold promise. It's a huge claim. And most copywriters are really good at that kind of stuff. We can make claims all over the place. But the problem that most copywriters have, the struggle is, how do we get our prospects to believe us? And not only believe us, but to be able to grasp what that means. Because thin, let's face it, is a very abstract concept. Thin to you might be something completely different to me, completely different to the person down the street, right? Thin is relative to how our perspective, right? So watch how powerful, all right? Watch what he does next. That is absolutely phenomenal. So go ahead and check this out.
This is that Sony product. Again, one of the best in the field. 1.2 inches down to 0.8 inches. This is the MacBook Air.
So notice what he did there. So he made that big promise and he said the world's thinnest notebook, but then he goes on as the reader, the watcher can see it. We're like, holy crap, that's a big difference. That's massive. And now, you know, the numbers, he could have just said, oh, the Sony TZ series is this thick and ours is this thick. But when it comes to numbers, we don't know. They're talking, you know, 0.0 decimals or whatever. We would just kind of glaze over, right? But when you saw that white line of what the competitor is and then the green line of the MacBook Pro, it becomes very visual. We can see it, we feel it, and we're like, wow, that's a big difference. So in your copy, you can do the same thing. You can make it extremely visual, show your reader, your watcher really grasp the advantage. They see like, holy crap, that's a big deal. And that's where the proof is, right? He shows the proof like, hey, here's your competitor, here's us. It's extremely visual. And we don't have a choice but to believe it. We have to believe it. But not only do we believe it, it makes sense to us. But notice what he does here. He takes it a whole nother level. Because that right there, the audience is like, whoa, that's really cool. But watch what he does next. Check this clip out.
Now I want to point something out here. The thickest part of the MacBook Air is still thinner than the thinnest part of the TZ series.
So how amazing was that? He didn't only prove it to us, but he gave us a powerful, insanely new perspective. He showed us that, you know, not only was the MacBook Air the thinnest, but the thickest part was actually thinner than the thinnest part of the other one. And then you hear everybody, I mean, you can feel the power in that perspective. People were like, whoa, now we really grasp the advantage. And not only does he prove that it's the thinnest one, he proved it's the thinnest by, you know, over twice, right? Because the thickest part is thinner than the thinnest part of the competition. So it's no doubt the leading, you know, Air or computer, or the thinnest computer on the market. Now he's gone on. Remember the big promise was, you know, we're the world's thinnest notebook, but now like that promise meant something. You're like, okay. But now when you see the proof behind it being that much thinner, and then the perspective of, man, the thickest part of this MacBook Air is thinner than the thinnest part of the competition. I mean, he just blew them out of the water. There is no doubt in anyone's mind this is clearly the best solution to anybody's problem when they're like, oh, my computer's too thick or it's too heavy or whatever. Like, they completely destroyed everybody. So notice what they did there. He made the claim, he made it visual, got them to grasp the advantage, and then on top of that, he changes their perspective and shows them an entirely new way to look at it, and it just completely astounds the audience. I mean, imagine if you did that in your copy, and you can do that. You can do it by showing charts, you can do it by showing images, you can do it with words, describing an image. You can make it very powerful and very visual, but notice how he did that. That was the formula. Now let's go ahead and check out what he does next, because he takes it to an entirely new level that just pushes his entire presentation over the top, and it will do the same for your copy if you use this next technique. So let's check it out. Let me show you what it is. Watch this clip.
It's so thin, it even fits inside one of these envelopes that we've all seen floating around the office. And so let me go ahead and show it to you now. This is it. Let me take it out here. This is the new MacBook Air, and you can get a feel for how thin it is.
So notice what he did there. He's now built on the idea that it's the world's thinnest notebook even further. So he made the promise to start with. He made it visual so you and I could both see it in relation to the competition. Then he gave us a powerful new perspective on how we should look at it. And then what does he do? He goes on to build on that and gives us a powerful demonstration. So if we didn't what we call grasp the advantage of having a thin notebook before, we do now. Because he comes with that manila envelope and he's like, hey, here it is. And he pulls it out of a manila envelope. Now we can see it. So just think like how visual it has become and how much we're grasping advantage. Now, if you're thinking about a thin computer, you're like, wow, my computer fits in a manila envelope. So now, just notice how powerful this really is, how he's taken the idea of a thin notebook from dimensions and what it was to competitors to fitting in an actual manila envelope. Notice how he's walked it up. You know, it's called dimensionalization. It starts with some numbers and you see a little chart, and then it starts with, or the next section is like, hey, it's, the thickest part is thinner than the thinnest part. And then it's like, man, this thing fits in a manila envelope. So he just keeps walking up the visualization, walking up the power and the proof, and demonstrating it to where we really grasp the advantage. We can see in our minds, like, wow, okay, I totally get it. This is the world's thinnest notebook. And now we have something to compare it to. It's just so incredibly powerful. And this is something that you can do inside of your copy. Just follow the same formula. Make the claim, prove it with something that's visual to the reader, build on, or watcher, build on that by shaping their perspective and having them see it in a different light, because that's going to help them remember it, and it's going to help your product or service stand out when you're writing your copy or they're watching, whatever. And then on top of that, the last thing, if you can do it, do a demonstration to where they can see really how powerful it is, because if you follow that formula, they will believe you every time, and they will almost have no choice but to buy your product or service, and your copy will convert like crazy. So I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of one of the most genius copywriters, but not actually a copywriter on the planet. It's a shame that he has passed away, because he was a genius both in his products and the way he delivered everything. If you want more help from me writing copy, go ahead and check out copyskillswithaz.com/letter. It is my proven sales letter course. It was inspired by airline pilots. So pretty fascinating. Even if you don't want, I would definitely go check it out, because you're going to read a really cool way to write copy. It'll show you a 7-step proven process that airline pilots actually use in emergencies. So it was a way that I took an emergency from an airline pilot and translated it over into write copy. And it's helped me write winning sales letters. And it can help you write winning sales letters too. So go ahead and head over to copyskillswithaz.com/ letters, letter with no S, just letter, as in sales letter. So go ahead and check that out. If you want personal mentorship from me, you can check out copyskills.com/mentor. And of course, if you want my big book of copy, you can head over to copyskills.com/big book. Totally free swipe file. I've put together 101 of the best world-class swipes from all over the place and over the last basically 100 years. So pretty powerful piece. So go check those out and we'll see you on the next video. So long.